Welcome and welcome back to Really Legal on the Really American Network. I'm attorney Ethan Bearman. Today was Hunter Biden's first day in court in Delaware on the gun charges. This is federal U.S. District Court. I'll give you the good, the bad, and what's next. And naturally, we have to begin this by talking about the unbelievable series of allegations and lies that are told by the pro-Trump crowd after his conviction last week. And I'm going to compare and contrast it with what Hunter Biden is facing in Delaware. It's really important to start with the basics in that Hunter Biden's investigation began when Donald Trump was still president of the United States. And you could argue that it was a politically motivated investigation. You could. But however, that investigation lasted 5 years. President Biden specifically kept that U.S. attorney on that's responsible for that area because he didn't want to appear that he was putting a thumb on the scale for his own son, his only living son at this point. So it's a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in that district who chose to go after Hunter Biden. And there was apparently a plea agreement that was agreed to between the defense and the prosecution last July, when Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, who is the judge overseeing this case in Delaware, asked some reasonably good questions. Just, you guys got to know, judges are always allowed to ask questions about plea deals. They're also allowed to not accept plea deals for any number of reasons. So while Judge Noreika is also a Trump appointee, oh my gosh, the system is rigged. Judge Merchan was appointed and elected and not by the Biden administration, who has nothing to do with state court judges. Oh, in this case, you have a U.S. attorney who's Trump appointed. You have a U.S. judge, district court judge who's Trump appointed. Absolutely meaningless, by the way. My point is this. I'm going to compare and contrast and say the Trump people are absolute lying jerk faces, essentially, when they're arguing unfair, rigged, garbage, balderdash, complete junk. This, I think, if you were going to go down that path, you would have an argument. But I don't think it's a valid argument. I really don't. And the reason why I'll get to here. So there was a plea agreement. The judge said, hey, do you realize this is a little unusual, this plea agreement, tax charges, guns, totally separate gun charges. You're pleading to both. And it doesn't give you immunity from any other charges. And the defense threw up their hands and tore up or threatened to tear up the plea agreement. So it got scuttled. And as a result, we have these two separate cases, one here in Los Angeles in the Central District of California for the tax charges that's coming up against Hunter Biden. But this one's in Delaware for the gun charges. That's where it allegedly took place. And the charges alone, really, if you're going to get into calling things witch hunts, this starts to get there. Because remember, in Donald Trump's case, we know that between 2015 and the date of his indictment at the end of March 2023, the state of New York, nearly 9,800 felony charges of business records falsification were filed in that state. 9,800, meaning not unusual, okay? In this case, we have count one is the falsification of a statement or lying on the form for the background check. Count two is lying on the form for the actual transaction of the firearm. And what those lies allegedly are is Hunter Biden's drug addiction, his drug use. Are you an addict? Are you currently using these illegal narcotics? He said no to both of those questions, which may or may not be true. I don't know. We're going to find out what the evidence is presented in court. That's how this works. And then the third charge is possession of a firearm by somebody who's an addict and using illegal narcotics. So that's what the three charges are. Very simple. Now, here's where this massive contrast comes into play. Unlike the Donald Trump case in New York related to the payments that were illegally misrepresenting business records with the intent to cause another crime. In that case, it was either New York State election law or tax law. Here we have charges that are extremely rare. There is a government accounting office report that was submitted to the United States Congress in September of 2018. Report to the Ranking Member, Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies, Committee on Appropriations, House of Representatives. Few individuals denied firearms purchases are prosecuted, and ATF should assess use of warning notices in lieu of possession. Really importantly, when we go to Appendix F and we look, they actually analyzed a number of cases and what people were convicted of. And they're all the same, which are, it's 18 U.S.C. 922 and 18 U.S.C. 924, which are the same charges that Hunter Biden faces, basically. And here we have things like, oh, you lied about being a convict, a felon. Okay, sentenced to time served. Very rare. Another one, convicted felon, straw purchase, and evading federal agents. 1 year federal custody, 3 years supervisory release. But here's the one that's more along the lines of what Hunter Biden is facing. This person lied about a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. What was the disposition in this case? Charges declined by prosecutors. No charges. Here's another nominal one. But again, misdemeanor crime of domestic violence and drug use. Pleaded guilty to state charge for false purchase, 12 months in prison. Prior conviction for domestic violence, still pending. But these are extremely rare cases. And it's just very important to note that out of 80 million American adults who own a firearm, 1,000 a year are investigated for false statements on the gun purchase form. This is according to this report. And it's only a small percentage of them who are ever charged. So in this case, Hunter Biden is an anomaly for these charges. This is an anomaly. It's not the normal course of business. However, if he did lie and has lied about this, then he's going to face the penalties for it. And you're not seeing Democrats running around screaming about rigged and unfair and blah, blah, blah. It might be unfair, but it's the system. And we're listening to the system and we're letting it work. Also, what's fundamentally important here is none of us are voting for Hunter Biden. He's never served in a government office. He's never held an official position with the government in any way, shape, or form. So the potential sentence, though, for Hunter Biden is up to 25 years, which is the maximum penalty. Not going to happen. It's just not. But here, the judge, just like Justice Merchan in the Trump case, has both ruled for and against Hunter Biden in preliminary filings. Against Hunter Biden because he said his defense team has argued, hey, we should narrowly interpret the law. Was he using drugs that day that he filled out the form? And the judge said, no, we're going to go with the prosecution, which is a much more broad term of was he a drug addict? Was he using drugs, illegal narcotics? So win for the prosecution, not a win for Hunter Biden. Win for Hunter Biden, a small win. One of the key pieces of evidence that the government has is the Hunter Biden laptop, which has very serious questions about it to this day. And the defense said, look, we want to be able to attack the credibility of this laptop. We don't know about these text messages on there. The judge only granted them to be able to challenge the validity, the establish that those are actual text messages from Hunter Biden. They're able to challenge just the text messages, not videos, not emails. So that's a small win for the Hunter Biden team. So, all right, what happened today in court? It was voir dire, which is where they go through and they do the jury selection. Federal court's usually a lot tougher than state court, at least here in California. In state court here, lawyers have a lot of room to challenge and ask questions. Typically in federal court, the judge asks the questions. They're very, very limited. Both sides submit the questions, and the judge is the one who asks them, not the lawyers. And here today, by the end of day one, they have 6 men and 6 women seated on the jury, 4 alternate women jurors who are going to hear the opening statements tomorrow morning, June the 4th, 2024, in the Hunter Biden trial. And as we understand, at the end of the day today, also the prosecution announced who they're going to say is going to be their first witness. And her name, because she's an actual ATF agent, her name is FBI Special Agent Erica Jensen. This is likely just to say, these are the ATF forms. This statement means this. This is what was marked. Again, like we've talked about, those are evidentiary witnesses essentially to establish in the record what was done by Hunter Biden. But again, not an elected official, not accused of a grand conspiracy to lie. This is an allegation that he lied on a form. 2 forms, same alleged lie about being, not being a drug addict or currently using illegal narcotics, and then in possession of the firearm. So this is very simple. It's fairly straightforward. The indictment itself was very short. There were 5 opening paragraphs, and then they went into counts 1, 2, and 3. But tomorrow we're going to start hearing. Now, interestingly enough, juror number 1, for example, was discharged, according to reporting from NBC News, because no cameras in court. Federal court, no cameras. State court, sometimes cameras, when a judge allows it or if the state has specific rules allowing it. Federal court, it's as a standard, no cameras, period. So we're going to get reporting from inside, and NBC News reported that juror number 1 said, gun ownership is a God-given right. I'm not even going to go into what that means. Cite me the Bible where it talks about gun ownership being a right. Not possible, but it's the state of the country we live in now, that's a God-given right. For example, juror number 26, middle-aged black man, said he carries a concealed weapons permit and that, quote, I believe the Second Amendment is very important. Other jurors also said they have relatives who own guns. Juror 39 recounted how his older brother struggled with PCP. Back in the 70s, that was called angel dust. And heroin. When asked if the brother was still fighting the addiction, the jury said he was the last time he checked. And he doesn't think people should own guns if they're addicted to drugs. These are seated jurors. Oh my gosh, is that unfair? No, it's not. This was done. It's a fair trial. If Hunter Biden did the crime, he'll get convicted by a jury of his peers. This is identical. Yet actually there's more, if you're a conspiracist, to point to in this case. I feel badly for Hunter Biden because my simple opinion is this. I think his attorney, Abby Lowell, who's phenomenal lawyer, phenomenal litigator, not going to complain one bit. However, I have one tiny little thing when I review the record here. I feel, this is just my opinion, I feel like Abby Lowell might have been too aggressive in the defense of his client in some of the filings, in the court appearance where the plea deal fell apart. Sometimes that can work against you because you're going to start ticking off the judge. They're going to not look as kindly on what's happening. That's possible here. I'm not suggesting that is what happened here, but I see that as a possibility. It's possible Abby Lowell might have been too aggressive in defense of his client. All right, what's good? What's bad? What's next? The good. Look, fair trial. This is all reasonable. Both trials, New York for Donald Trump, this one, actually all the trials for Donald Trump thus far, absolutely fair. This one, absolutely fair. Now, does that mean it might get overturned on appeal? Possible. Fair trial. Number 2, the bad. One, I feel horrifically bad for President Joe Biden. This is the first time a sitting president's child has been indicted on federal charges. I feel so bad for President Biden. I really do, to have to go through this. And remember between his wife and daughter dying in the car crash back in, I think it was 1974, both sons were injured. And then Beau passed away in 2015 from brain cancer. And Hunter has his struggles that he's admitted to in his book. So what's next tomorrow? Opening statements. We're going to find out. And then the first prosecution witness. I'll keep you up to date right here, though. Give me your comments. Is this a fair trial? Is this equal to what President Trump went through, former President Trump, in New York last week with the Mershon trial ending and his guilty conviction on 34 felony counts? I love your comments. Give those to me below. Click that like button, smash the subscribe button, share this video. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I'm attorney Ethan Bearman, Really Legal on the Really American Network.